Hey everybody, this is Sean. In today's video, I want to go over some huge issues that are prevalent in the private security industry. And most of the issues that I'm going to talk about, actually all of them revolve around less lethal launchers. So the first issue I want to talk about is less lethal shotguns that are being placed into the inventory of armed private security guards, especially in the Los Angeles area. I keep seeing a lot of patrol vehicles out there with the less lethal shotgun in the shotgun rack. And I just don't think that a lot of security companies are educated on the laws. So the actual munition that is being launched is perfectly legal for anybody to possess. And here I have a CTS sock. This is a beanbag munition. This is the CTS model 2581. And then here I have the Def Tech. This is the 12 gauge stabilized beanbag round. Now, both of these munitions are perfectly legal to have as a private citizen. What makes this less lethal setup illegal so to speak, is the actual device that is launching the munitions, right? So these are accepted, they're fed into a 12 gauge shotgun. As a private security guard, can you carry a 12 gauge shotgun out in the field? Well, the answer is yes, if you're able to qualify with a shotgun round. However, the BSIS in California, they are the regulatory arm for private security, private investigation professionals in California. They don't allow you to qualify with less lethal munitions. Because of that, you have no legal exemption to carry a less lethal shotgun inside of your patrol vehicle. So you really run the risk when you're doing so of getting maybe cited and released or maybe booked into jail for carrying a loaded firearm in a public place. You gotta be really careful. And then if you're in a school district zone, that could be another issue. One of the other pressing issues in the world of less lethal, as it pertains to private security professionals in California, is there are some launchers that look like and they feel like real guns, like real handguns. In particular, there's some of the Byrna, B-Y-R-A-N-A launchers, the ones that look like pistol. You might be asking me, well, what kind of gun does that look like? Well, if anything, maybe a high point. I'm really pushing it. But the feel is very similar to a handgun. And for me personally, if I have to use a less lethal launcher, I want it to feel a little bit different. I want it to look a lot different than my actual handgun. And that's just a personal preference. The third issue that I've seen is there's a lot of less lethal instructors out there that are not teaching a very important concept. And that concept involves knowing your holds and knowing what your munition does at certain distances. So for example, the last 2 years, I've had a lot of experience either observing others or launching different munitions. You're talking about the 40 millimeter. I launched 37 millimeters and stabilized beanbag rounds from 12 gauge shotguns. Running these courses, quite often you get to see different trajectory with different weapon systems, and I had a whole lot of exposure. Something that I noticed, especially with the Def Technologies and CTS, so CTS and Def Technologies, they both have their beanbag stabilized round. Okay, the only difference is the fin, right? So this right here is Def Technologies, and this is CTS. That's it. CTS doesn't want to have the same fin because they're scared of trademark legal issues, right? So I zero with a red dot with a 12 gauge shotgun, specifically the one with the 18-inch barrel. I zero it at 10 yards. And if I zero at 10 yards, I notice with this munition that my point of aim and my point of impact is very similar to, let's say, 20 yards. And then as I go to 30 yards, I'm about 0.5 of an inch low. However, what I've seen with other students that come to the class, they'll bring a 16-inch barrel, which is 2 inches shorter than the recommended barrel. I notice that at 20 yards, they come about 5.5 of an inch too low. And then, and I'm reading the data right now, at 30 yards, there was a considerable, well, there's a noticeable arc, and it actually went underneath the target. So what we did is we got our USP-SA target, cardboard target, and then towards the bottom, where we would say maybe we can draw an outline of hips. That was our impact zone. With the 16-inch barrel, it went right underneath. We didn't even know where it actually impacted, and you can actually see it arc. Now, with destabilized rounds and just about any type of less lethal munition, these munitions travel at subsonic speeds. And basically, a subsonic speed is when a projectile travels at about 1,125 feet per second. If it travels faster than that, then you have supersonic. And basically what supersonic refers to is, or I'm sorry, subsonic is below the sound barrier. What happens, for those of you who are into sniper craft, there's something called, there's a transonic zone. And basically this is a zone when the bullet goes from supersonic speeds to subsonic speeds, and the bullet is very unstable, and it does a lot of strange things downrange. And I could see more or less, for lack of a better term, something very similar happened with less lethal munitions. I have a lot of experience launching from the 12 gauge 18-inch barrel. When we bring it back to 25 yards, it does a lot of strange things. Sometimes it goes higher than our anticipated point of impact. It goes lower, it goes to the left, it goes to the right. It just does weird things. But when we bring it back to 20 yards, we see a good level of consistency. But 25 yards, it's just the spot that we don't want to be in, because I feel like I'm entering the transonic zone, right? Now, those of you who are training others, or maybe you got trained in, let's just say, maybe pepper ball, right? Or maybe the Berna. The question I have for you guys is, what does the munition do at various distances? And is there a minimum standoff distance? Usually with pepper ball systems or paintball based systems, there is no minimal standoff distance. And minimal standoff distance basically refers to that safe distance. How far away do you need to be away from this subject before you launch? With this munition right here, the drag stabilized beanbag round, manufacturer wants you to be 20 feet away. That's the minimum standoff distance. With CTS, there's no standoff distance. It's really your agency, company, or department policy. The reason why it's so important to know what the projectile does at different distances is, are you compensating? Are you compensating for munition drop? Because it can happen. What is going to end up happening is maybe you're going to push it down to 30 yards, right? And you don't know what the drop is because you're not keeping data. You can possibly aim for a preferred zone, which is maybe the lower torso. And then because of that munition drop, you could end up hitting somebody in the groin. Just think about that. And there's a point in time where you're actually going to have to hold over higher, right? So if you want to hit right here on the lower torso area, you might actually, at a distance that you're gonna have to figure out what it is, you could potentially have to aim right here or over here. And just imagine if you're wrong with the distance, you might hit somebody in a zone that you're not supposed to hit. Now, those of you who are my Byrna people, BYRNA, or maybe my pepperball people, in the training, it's acceptable to hit somebody in the chest area. A lot of schools train that, right? However, if something goes south, and it will, the case goes south, and again, it will, you're gonna have a law enforcement, possibly expert, testifying against you or testifying against your company. And they're gonna testify that this is an area that you do not aim for, the upper torso. You don't shoot somebody with a beanbag in the chest. That is a no zone, right? They're gonna be testifying that those are areas that you're not supposed to be aiming at, because what could possibly happen is you're gonna end up hitting somebody in the eye, right? And you're gonna say, well, I was aiming for the chest. That expert's gonna say, no, that's not even a zone that you're supposed to be intentionally aiming for. So this is where your training might conflict with the reality of the legal system. And I'm not putting down any trainers out there, any different organizations. This is just something that you have to be ready for. If you got to testify while you're training your students, these are questions that you're going to have to answer. And also, quite honestly, with something like a Byrna or a 68 or 61 caliber based system, I'm not too confident that projectile is stabilized, maybe even past 20 yards. I just don't know how stabilized it is. Maybe I would bring a 40 millimeter to 25 yards because I know what it does. I know what a 40 millimeter, in particular the CTS 4557 foam baton, I know what that does at 25 yards. And it drops significantly, right? If I want to hit the area that I want to, right, I'm gonna have to aim significantly higher, right? Significantly higher if I want to hit that zone. I don't know what the actual distances are right now off the top of my head, but if I do a visual observation of a target area, I can more or less estimate where I need to aim. Okay, I need to know. I can more or less estimate where that point of impact is going to be based on my point of aim. And the question for you guys is, are you able to do that with your current less lethal system? And I would argue that a lot of people are not prepared. They don't know what their munition does at 5 yards. They don't know what it does at 15 yards, 20 yards. They don't know how far they can push it. There's been some advertisement with Byrna lately. They've been advertising a 60 feet impact zone. So basically their projectile will hit somebody at 60 feet, which is 20 yards. My question to Byrna is, how accurate is your device? Is it within 4 inches? I can tell you from launching the DefTech drag stabilized rounds that basically the accuracy that we have is basically a fist. So if I place my fist where the point of impact is, it's going to be more or less within that fist, and that's not bad. What is accuracy with Byrna? What is accuracy for those of you that are launching the 60 caliber or 61 caliber rounds, munitions, right? What does it do? I just don't think a lot of people are able to answer that. I also don't think that 20 feet, was it 20? No, it's 20 yards is an area that people should be launching. And then when you go to 20 yards, I mean, if you have to. If you go 20 yards, what are you aiming at? Because if I'm aiming at someone's chest, okay, I don't think that would be an issue. But then again, is this a legal area that you can aim? Are you going to meet resistance when you go to court? During your deposition, is there going to be a lot of questioning about your training and your experiences? Because once again, when a law enforcement less lethal expert testifies against you, they're going to say that this area is off limits. So just something to think about. And I'm not saying that nobody's wrong out there. I'm just saying that you have to be prepared. I got some serious questions about some of the launching systems, like the FN 303. That's a heavy round, and there's a case. I think it was a Boston Sox event. Somebody, I think, lost their life because they got hit with the FN 303 munition, a 68 caliber, right in the eye. Oh, I'm sorry, I think right in the head. It cracked the skull. There's another instance at UC Davis where somebody was hit with a 68 caliber projectile in the eye, and that student lost his life. These are things that we have to think about. How hot is your munition? Berna boasts on their website or their text sheet, I'm sorry, not Berna, FN, 279 to 300 feet per second. Okay, that's, it's on the higher end. It's on the higher end, but the maximum effective range is 58 yards. Now, having learned that, I took that out of our armory. They're gone, and we traded those in for 40 millimeter. But the Berna, you have the Berna CL that launches at 400 feet per second, and that is pretty fast. What does that do to the human body at various distances? Do you know what the answer is to that? If you have to use this as a private security officer, are you able to defend yourself in court? Are you able to articulate why you use that specific munition? 400 feet per second is fast, and you're gonna have to articulate why you chose something that's different than the industry standards. That is a pretty fast round, okay? Are you guys out there performing chronographs on your munitions? Because from the training that I've been doing and my observations, these munitions travel at different speeds. So this SOC, the depth technology stabilized round, this travels, manufacturer specs say 270 feet per second. I've seen these travel at about 315 feet per second. I saw another one at 370 on a chronograph during training. That's a lot. Okay, that's a lot. What will that do when that hits somebody? Know your munitions, know your holdover patterns, know what your holdovers are, know what your munition does at various distances. So that's all I got. If you guys have any questions or anything to add, feel free to do so. If you guys want quality training, you want somebody to train your instructors, train your students, just send me an email and we'll get you guys properly trained. All right, guys, take care.